Great. This episode, just to let you know, and you're familiar with the product. Your brother's been familiar with the product. He's helped me with a lot of marketing. It's Ride Clean, and Ride Clean is a simple way of cleaning your motorcycle and keeping your car clean. Simply shake, spray, and wipe. It's UV protectant, made in America. I've had this product for almost 4 years. I was doing a lot of the pandemic stuff before, and I would sell out at the AIM Expo. Your brother actually came through a few times to help me out at a couple shows, and we would sell out like fucking crazy. But anyways, the company's called Ride Clean. You can check them out at rideclean.co. Use promo code RB Podcast for 25% off, plus free shipping, plus a bunch of free other promos. So check them out, rideclean.co. So let's get this party started with some intro music. Yeah. All production, all in one. Dun, Gray, welcome to the podcast. Cheers. Thank you for making it out. What do you think of these bad boys?
It actually tastes really good.
Right?
By the way, this audio equipment is amazing.
Thank you, man. Yeah, this is the equipment I've been using for like a few years now. It's a big upgrade. Is this the first time you use headphones and the whole fucking chingadera?
Well, I've been on a couple podcasts, but not to this quality yet.
Really?
But, yeah, I'm really hearing the quality in the audio.
That's fucking awesome, man.
You set this setup really nice.
Yeah, you get some cool little features. Gray's in the house, fucking drinking bang. You could do a whole fucking production. It has 8 sound effects, but then each button is also a bank. So you could do like, this is a comedy one, and then it'll set up all this to be comedy. So it's 8 times 8. So there's 64 different things you could program into it. I just never got that into that. I mean, like I said, I just started putting my introduction right now.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
And this stuff, these guys, it's funny. I was drinking this the other day, and somebody's like, what the fuck are you drinking? And I'm like, oh, dude, I got hooked on these things. They're pretty good. Why are you asking? They go, I usually don't drink anything with a label so wild. And I go, you know what? Neither do I. But when I read the stats, I was at CarMax, and when I read the stats, it's 0 carbs, 0 sugar, 0 calories. It has creatine, EAA amino acids. I started drinking this after the gym, and I felt fucking great, man. Now I'm kind of like hooked on it. So yeah, bang, keep it up. I used to see them with all the models and stuff advertising them. But how was your trip? What happened?
As far as the trip, so I ended up something going on with my car, but it's a recall issue, so I don't really have to worry about it too much. So it's going in on Friday. Just ended up taking an Uber out.
That's gangster, bro. Thank you.
Yeah. Traffic was on our side, so it was pretty much smooth sailing the whole time. And we just ended up talking. He was wondering what I was coming out for, and I told him I was going to go do a really cool podcast. I told him I was really going to do a really cool podcast. And then what you led into, what do you do? Why are you doing the podcast? You just, what do you guys talk about? And I just ended up talking about my business and some of the trials and tribulations that I've been going through. I've contributed to starting this business to, being really excited because you get to meet Mike Tyson.
Yeah,
because it's like badass, starting a new business is like meeting Mike Tyson for the first time. You're like, oh my God, I'm excited. I'm meeting Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
And then they tell you, hey, you got to get in the ring with him.
Oh shit. That's what the fuck. Yeah.
So then he knocks you out as you normally going to knock you out, right? And then they hit you with the smelling sauce and they tell you to go again.
You're right. And you're sure you don't want to do it again, but you have to.
But you have to. That's what starting a business is like, or at least been like for me. And I happen to choose one of the hardest businesses to start, which is a hard tech business. And I don't really even call it, even though I've been calling it business because legal has all the business, the incorporations, all those things, but we're not going to make any money until maybe 5 years from now.
Right.
So, it's just all the
and even when you
research
start making money, you have to pay all the investors and everybody else. So then you don't even really profit till 10 years from now.
Yeah.
In some cases.
Yeah. So realistically, for what we are doing, it's going to be a while, but the rates of return are going to be crazy.
Yeah.
And generally, when you do a hard tech, the rates of return not only have a major impact on like the world and people, but it also makes a lot of money.
Right.
You know.
Well, the key thing is money's great, but the key thing is I was having a conversation with this actually young kid, man. He was like 23 years old, but he was like paid, and he's like, man, my inspiration is just to do something that's going to help the human population, and what you're working on is going to help the population and the globe and the car industry and anything that moves industry. You know, so that's what's exciting. So what? And actually, funny story. Of course, you know, Ride Clean. We ran.
I still have some in my garage.
Yeah. We ran into each other at the when we were in Palm Springs when we were doing Shark Tank.
Yeah.
And we were in that big ass line, and we got pretty far. I was one step away. That was right before the pandemic. How fucking crazy is that?
You know what? Look, so oh man, I just think about some like, okay, so most of the things that I figured out, like when you're talking about technology, you're talking about hard tech, and you're talking about these things, I generally was starting from the science.
Right.
And you'd lose people in the conversation. And you can actually see the moment where people's eyes would tune out.
Disconnect. It would disconnect.
Right? And one of the things that I found, so I didn't know that because I was entirely new. I'd never started a business before. I just had this amazing idea, worked on it, and we weren't patented at that time yet. We just had submitted for our provisional patent at that point in time. And I was really excited because we got that going, and we had just got on the process of, okay, now we're moving in the right direction as far as getting the money that we needed to get and things that we needed to do. And I was like, I was really excited, but I had no idea how to sell anything of what I was talking about. And it wasn't until much later that year. No, not that year. It was in 2021 that I realized all the mistakes I had been making when it came to talking to people about
presenting,
what I had built.
Yeah.
Because I was coming from the science, not necessarily from the way people have been trained to understand what is a value to me. How is it a value to me? Because we've been conditioned when it comes to products through advertising. You know, there's a certain way to tell people how does this benefit you? And I was doing everything wrong.
Right.
And I didn't realize.
Yeah, you weren't creating the value or.
Yeah. So when I was talking about the science, I automatically assumed that people would understand, okay, this is what this means and this is what we can do with it.
Right.
And it confused me when I was talk to people about the science and they wouldn't get it. And I was like, this is going to change the world. And they go,
what is?
What
the fuck are you saying? Yeah.
I had no idea. And it didn't occur to me until we got associated with the University of University of California, Riverside. And they put us through this I-Core program, and that's the first thing they talked about. They showed this video, and we were in this class with this. Basically, it's a program. Let me explain the program. It's a program where they have a bunch of PhDs, and they hit you with a bunch of baseball bats with your idea, and it either will break, and you know it's broken, or you'll come out at the end with a bunch of really creative information and really know what you were doing wrong.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's a class.
Yeah. So it's not a class in the sense of you can sign up. They have to let you in. They have to let you in, and then at the end they give you $3,000.
Wow. To expand on your idea.
Yeah. So
wow.
to expand on your idea. And so not only does the PhDs, so it's a room full of PhDs that are really trying to cut you in shreds. And then tell you, oh yeah, but great idea at the end of it. Put a Band-Aid on it at the end of it. Right. And then you have to week.
That's like when you get jumped in a gang, everybody kicks your ass and fucks you up. And then when you're done getting beat up, they pick you up and like, welcome, brother. Like what?
Pretty much.
Hope you're okay, bro. It wasn't personal, you know?
Pretty much. But then every week you're supposed to create your hypothesis, a hypothesis question. Right. And in the beginning, you're crap at everything they're telling you to do, right? And so you create your hypothesis, and then you test your hypothesis against people and see if your hypothesis stands up versus what people are actually telling you when you're asking them questions.
Right.
So it's called the process is called customer discovery.
Got it.
So you're talking to people to see if what you have created is any value to them when you're asking these specific questions, and you gain insights into one, does it even work at all towards, what you can be creating nobody can actually want.
Right.
Right. And people will tell you that if you ask the right questions. And if you can't get any proper insights, you have a dud.
Yeah.
But if you start getting the proper insights that you need to get and start learning things that you didn't even, from aspects that you didn't even know existed, then you have something.
You have a breakthrough.
And then it tells you, okay, these are the things that people are going to want about your product.
Yeah.
When it actually hits the market. Right? So we learned several different things. We learned that one, people aren't going to be concerned as much about the mileage, as though that is a value to them, but that doesn't concern them as much.
Yeah.
But what does concern them is the fact that it does. Just the fact that
hold on, I'm going to stop you there because we're talking mileage and we don't know what you're talking about.
I didn't clarify yet.
Yeah, so so when people are listening to this, people are going to be like, "What the fuck is he talking about mileage?" So let's talk about let's take it back real quick and let's put that on mute. Let's take it back and let's talk about your idea and then how you got into the university, and then we'll talk about the mileage because I am very curious to understand how it affects it, because now I'm assuming you're going to lose some mileage on your performance, right?
Okay,
well, we'll get into that separately. But what's the idea, and how did you get to the university?
Okay,
and how did you come up with it?
I came up with I went through machining school and I learned how to become a machinist, and I was really good at it to the point where I started to excel past just machining and doing the CNCs and things like that. I started to touch on a little bit more engineering stuff. Then I had the bright idea to start a business. And then I was like, okay, if I'm gonna start a business, I'm gonna do the best possible thing that I can think of in the moment. So I came up with several different ideas that I could do. And then I just landed on this one because it was the closest for me to be able to succeed on it. I came up with like a tech idea, some of these other, software ideas and things like that, but I didn't know anything about software. So I was like, I don't know how far I can get with that, but I do know about this. Okay. So I had, when I was coming up with different ideas, I had this idea about this toy I used to have. And it was it was like a little monster truck. It was tiny, and you would rev it up and you'd let it go and it would drive off. And I just kept coming back to that idea. And I was like, it came to me. This was December of 2014. I was like, you know what? I know electric cars are going to be big one day. They're going to be big. I wonder if I can do something like that for electric cars. Right. And then I was like, that's my idea. I'm going to build something that can take the rotation of the wheels and create energy for the electric car. And I started out with, it's they call it first principle thinking, right? And I didn't learn about that until after the fact.
Right.
But so I started out. So when I came up with the idea, it was literally an alternator on a wheel.
Right. Right.
Right. There's so many reasons why that doesn't work. So many reasons why that doesn't work. But when it comes back to what I was just talking about, when it comes to first principle thinking, you start looking at it objectively. Okay, this is where you are. Why does this all not work? And by the time that you are done checking off all the things that are why it doesn't work, you'll end up with something entirely different that does the exact same thing that you were aiming at.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like a process of elimination will get you a result.
Yeah. As soon as you solve every single reason why this thing doesn't work and you continue to solve, you will end up with something different, but the same exact place where you were trying to end up with. And that's why an alternator on the wheel ended up looking like this.
Interesting.
Right? So, in one of the processes that I was looking at was, why is this not working? So I get to a point and then you go, okay, so now we have the drivability. Okay, it needs to turn left, needs to go up, down, all the different things that needs to happen.
The weight of the car, the weight of the machinery, the forces. Yeah.
Yeah. So when it came down to, okay, so we can't use a directly connected device. We're going to have to use something that can go up, left, and right. And what can do that? That's going to be a hose.
Yeah.
Right. So a hose can do that. And that's in the transferring.
A hose, or what about, what are the shifter rods that they can kind of like manipulate?
Well, see, the problem is you can't necessarily have a direct connection, because then you're going to deal with the if you drive an electric car, you know about the regenerative braking,
right?
So you can't get around certain physics, right? So when you sap energy out of a moving object, that action is sapping the motion out of it to create energy. So that in itself, so that's why the car is able to slow down, because you're literally sapping that motion and creating energy.
And it slows down quick.
Yes.
And it's not that, and that's another thing. It's not sustainable energy, because you're going to stop within, if you're at 70 miles an hour, you'll stop within 10 minutes or 10 seconds.
Yeah. So you can't get around that physics. So, but what you can do is do certain things that allow for that physics to take place. But there's certain things that you can do where you can localize that science, right?
Okay.
So, taking motion and creating energy with it will always do at that. You will always experience that. So windmills experience it, water mills experience it. That's just the way it is, right? Because you can't get something out of nothing. You have to sacrifice something to get something.
Right.
Right. So, what I figured out is if you do that with a liquid, what it does is it transfers the energy in the liquid, and it happens at the turbine. It stays localized at the turbine and doesn't actually return back to the wheels. Right?
That's it. Yeah.
So in
the only time that ever makes sense is if you have a stream or a waterfall or something in nature that has unlimited velocity or has a whatever current.
Correct. Where that makes sense. So then, so this is going to be my power source. Now I have to figure out, how do I create something where it is an enclosed device and I can moving objects in the inside of the device with the velocity from the outside of the device or the rotating wheel, and not have it impact or slow down the car. That's why you have to have it separated like that.
Right.
So then I thought about
sealed off. Yeah.
Day one of physics, right? Day one of physics. Everyone is always in elementary. You have put one magnet on the other bottom of the table and moved it around, move the top magnet.
Yeah.
Now, when you think about that, you don't actually have to put double the energy in to move both magnets. You only have to put enough energy in to move one magnet, and the magnetic force is what moves the top magnet.
Right.
Right. So in using this particular device, we only have to put enough energy in to move the axle and the weight of the magnet in order to create energy for the car. So we move the inside of the device, which is moved by the magnets, and then we just have to move the magnets, which in comparison to the weight of the vehicle doesn't have an impact really at all. The person as the driver will not experience a slowdown effect or anything of the such. If you hook it up to a machine, you'll see the point, whatever percentage that you have.
Wow. Okay, got it.
Yeah. You'll see the point, whatever percentage.
Yeah. So you've created a device, in a sense, a gearbox, in a sense, kind of, where it's a box, and inside of it you have either a gear or something that circulates a fin, whatever the case is, that's going to connect, or it's going to move based on magnets that are hooked up to the tires. And with the rotation of the tires, these magnets are going to move that gear or that fin or whatever you want inside of it. And it's going to circulate the water, creating a vortex. Not a vortex.
Yeah, you're getting it. So in the electric car, in our proof of concept, we're using water, but in an electric car, it's a solution that you can fully submerge electronics and everything. They're using it for cryptocurrency right now. Like people who mine cryptocurrency, they're keeping their computers cool with this liquid. So
it's like an antifreeze kind of. Almost.
Yeah. So not only will adding our technology to the electric car not only make the car more efficient, but it will also make it safer, in fact, because like you can also dump this liquid onto the battery and it's non-conductive. And
so if the car burns up and this popped, it would actually
if those batteries pop, you can dump, pretty much have the safety system to dump the liquid that is actually creating this energy, and in fact may even to the point when we integrate, they may use it to also cool the batteries. But you can have it where you won't get electrocuted or anything like that if a crash happens and you pop one of those batteries and exposed to air.
Yeah.
So it actually makes it, not only will extend the range, but it'll make the car safer for everyone to drive. But that's a little further down the line. But you're right about what you were saying. So then the outside creates, we accelerate the liquid, and then we send that liquid into a turbine. Now the turbine is what experiences the slowdown effect. But because we're using a liquid as a medium, like say if we used like a band or something like that, then that band would transmit back to the wheels the slowdown effect that you're seeing in regenerative braking. But because we're using the turbine and we're using a liquid, the turbine experiences the slowdown effect, but the liquid doesn't transmit the slowdown effect back to the wheels.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, when it goes to the turbine, well, I guess the turbine would just have like a negative and a positive, and it'll create. Is there a transformer of any sort? Like, how does it grab that energy and turn it into energy?
Well,
just pretend I don't know nothing about.
So the turn. Okay,
so what's the process? So now we have the gear shifting, we have the magnets rotating everything, and now everything's going to this turbine. This turbine has almost unlimited, energy or a cycle or force going through it because the car's moving. What happens after that?
Okay, so once the liquid is accelerated, so think of it like a dam. So the best way for me to explain this is to think of it like being a dam. Like we've localized a dam, and instead of gravity being the thing that accelerates the liquid and sends it into the turbine, right? The turbine then harnesses the velocity of the liquid,
right,
and then creates energy with the moving of its fins,
right,
and then it's charged. Then it creates its charge, and you send it wherever it needs to go. But instead of using gravity to do that, like a dam does, we're using the wheels to do that.
The motion of the wheels.
So the motion of the wheels is what creates the velocity, transfers the rotation of the wheels velocity into the blades, that are in with our device, and then the blades within transfers that velocity
it's amazing.
the wheels.
It's amazing. How much energy are you going to be able to generate?
So we're looking at right now, our conservative estimates are anywhere from 30 to 50% returns on. Wow. Yeah. So 300-mile car, 450 miles. 500-mile car, we're looking at 700 miles.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's humongous.
Yeah.
Where are you? You have everything patent. You have designs. Where are you? I know you're saying roughly around 5 years, but have you tested this on anything? Have you? I heard. I think your brother was telling me that you guys were doing like a smaller car.
Yeah. So
like what have you done? Like what are the breakthroughs? You've already done the university. You've already got beat up with the bats. You've already got the fucking $3,000. You're on the right path. But what other things have you? What milestones have you hit?
So where we're
This
at
is
right
exciting,
now,
bro.
we're in the process.
Hold on. Fucking exciting. Awesomeness. Where are you at?
So where we're at right now, we are doing the proof of concept. We're building our proof of concept. And what that is it's not quite the prototype yet, because the prototype will be the actual physical car. What we're building is, hey, we built this device and it does X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And then once we do that, we're looking at, raising the funding in order so that we can build the actual car.
Right.
And then, debuting it across the world and doing what we need to do. And then, getting the proper investment so we can build it properly, and then do our research and development from that point so that we can actually get it to the consumer's hands. But there's still a ton of research and development that has to take place before it's ready for the consumer,
Question, how can you add this to cars? Or this is going to be something that once the technology is there, a brand, manufacturer is going to say, hey, we want this technology, and they put it on a new car?
Well, when it comes to the cars, so cars isn't the only thing that can use the technology. So we can build aftermarket things for other things. But when it comes to cars, you can do it for older cars, but most people are going to be having newer cars with warranties on them. So unless we can negotiate something where we can get a sponsored package that they can add at the dealer, then we may start voiding people's warranties, because we also have to mess with their software.
Yeah.
Because there's a software component to it that after you have the system that gets the energy back, then the computer has to understand what to do with it.
Right.
While in motion. See, when the car is slowing down, that
so
stuff
doesn't
is pretty
fry
much
it or something. Yeah.
exactly. So there's another component. So we have to get actually really into the car. So the manufacturer generally will have to be on board with this. So that's why we're structuring it not to go directly to consumer, but directly to the manufacturer.
Yeah.
And then the manufacturer sell it to the consumer.
Yeah, which is awesome, because that's what companies are doing right now anyways. Like, you have Tesla building software for only Teslas, but then you have other companies, building software for all the other cars, and then these manufacturers just say, hey, we want this software, we want this hardware, and it's going to be much easier. And they'll be able to service it, so the technology will pick up faster. Shit, you could even put this on trains.
Oh yeah, trains, 18-wheelers, construction vehicles. We're looking at elevators for buildings.
Wow.
We're looking at warehouses where the conveyor belts, all of those rotating actions for the conveyor belts. We're looking at windmills. We're looking at military vehicles. Considering that the whole world is gonna be electrified, we're approaching that date of the 2030, where they're going to only be manufacturing electric vehicles from this standpoint, and other things. So the whole world is going to be electrified. And when you think about all the things that have an existing rotating action to it, and then you can apply our technology and get a return out of that, and not impact the rotation or make the device work any harder. We're talking about some major paradigm shifts within government and consumers, municipalities. The impact of the technology is monumental.
That's mind blowing, man. That's fucking mind blowing.
Yeah,
that's crazy. How much? Who's going to do your software, and to show what to do with this energy?
We right now we're just working on the system itself. We haven't even begun to work on the software component yet, but we were always just planning on bringing someone in-house when we were ready to, hire for that.
In-house meaning with the university?
Not necessarily with the university, but bring people in-house and hire for the company.
Yeah.
Because we have some our eyes on being quite big and developing other technologies and getting into government contracting and just dealing with DARPA and some of these other
identities, yeah,
crazy technology. We have our eyes on space.
I mean, why not? At that point, you have your eyes on everything. As an entrepreneur, how have you gotten this far? Do you have investors? Have you been investing your own money? Have you been taking money from your brother? I'm just kidding. I'm just like, but what as an entrepreneur aspect? Because obviously, you need an income, and you need a home, and you need a roof, and you need food. Let's talk about the entrepreneur side of it.
Well, first of all, I looked at it from this aspect. I don't have the educational background to basically make sense of anything that I'm doing right now. So if you looked at if everyone has a white paper of what they did, and then you see what they're doing, okay, this makes sense. They're doing X, Y, Z, right? If you looked at mine and then looked at what I'm doing, you say this doesn't make sense. These two things don't align. So I was realistic about that. So I understood that the appearance of something, things don't make sense. So most of the time, until you have something behind you, people don't really understand that. So I wasn't going to get any kind of the support I needed from the beginning. So what I ended up doing was making my expenses as low as possible. Making those sacrifices, not doing this, all the hard sacrifices that I was going to have to do to make sure I had money saved up and paid off my credit cards, my bills, all the things that I needed to do to live as low as a bar of expenses that I possibly could do.
Minimalist.
I knew that this company was going to need a lot of money, and I knew that people weren't going to believe me from the beginning, because not only is it a tall order, that what I'm saying right now, but yeah, right. Come on. You're not going to give me that money because this is just a tall order, and you don't have the educational background. You're not a PhD of physics, and you don't know. In fact, I got thrown out of an office one time when I was talking to somebody about it. The moment he found out I didn't have an engineering degree, and he was like, yeah, right. I'm not even looking at what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I don't think that's obviously one of the factors, but I don't think it's as bad as not being able to explain it properly. Because I've had this conversation with you many times, and I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like, I don't. What do you mean? Like, it has regenerative. Like, I take my foot off the gas, and it's regen. It really exists, And it wasn't until recently that I'm kind of working on another energy, project that this started. This is blah 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 blah. That we got back in touch, and I got it. I was like, oh, and I think that's, if you look at how you were explaining it 4 years ago and how you're explaining it now,
I could not explain it properly, even though I built it. I could not explain it properly.
And me looking back, I could see in your face exactly what you said. I could see in your face that you completely believed and understood what you were saying, and you couldn't understand that people didn't understand you.
Yeah.
I could see it. Like, now I'm like, oh, that's what that look was for. But my look was like, what is he saying?
All right. So what it so happens is it's called, so I've recently figured out that I have an ability called spatial reasoning. Right?
What is this?
It's called spatial reasoning.
Spatial reasoning.
So, have you ever seen like SolidWorks or any engineering software?
I have not.
So it's this 3-dimensional space that you can build and test things in.
Interesting.
And
it's accurate.
And it's accurate, right? So some people, and I always thought this was normal. I just thought everyone could
hold on. So question. So I can get on this software and I could say, if I grab this rocket on the table and I use 3 pounds of force on my hand at this angle and throw it, it'll give me like a calculation of where it'll land.
Beyond that.
And like how many pieces it'll break into and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where the liquid pours out.
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool.
It electrical, mechanical, all this, everything.
Fucking amazing.
That's how people. That's how we build things. That's how engineers build things right now. Generally speaking, we build it in this software, and we test all the things that it needs to test.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily mean you can make that the manufacturing process has caught up to what you can actually build it in 3-dimensional space yet. So still, even though you build it in 3-dimensional space, doesn't mean you can actually build it in real life yet. But at some point in time, when manufacturing processes catch it up, you can build it.
Right.
You know, where we're at now, we're 3D metal building, you know, whereas we were limited to, you know, manufacturing from CNC from certain 3-dimensional spaces and, you know, moving on from 3-axis to 5-axis to the 7-axis, these different axes that create different angles for us to manufacture different things. Now we're getting to a point where we're doing crazy angles because we're just printing metal, right? Yeah. So this is what I mean. Like, just because you build something in 3-dimensional space doesn't mean you can actually build it in reality, because the manufacturing process haven't caught up to what you can build in 3-dimensional space.
Or like thrust. You know, like you can say, all right, 4 Gs or 3 Gs of the force, this will rocket this much. But if you put 15 Gs, just because it can calculate, we can't, you know, replicate, or we can't execute 10 Gs, whatever the case is. Yeah. 5 Gs or 6 Gs at that point, right?
So
I get it.
But so that kind of software that we've been able to build.
And you did that software with this?
Well, yeah, we had to use that to build this, But
and it generated enough energy and everything in there?
Well, yeah. So that's how. Okay, so we don't have a design patent. So we have the big boy. We have the utility patent. The utility patent is on the science. Now, a design patent, you don't have to prove anything works. It is literally just based on the looks.
Right.
A utility patent, you have to prove that it works because it's the science.
And that's how you proved it.
So we built it in SolidWorks and did that. And that's what we submitted to the patent office as, hey, this is proof that this scientifically works. And then that's what they granted the patent off of. And just so happened got 13. It was 13.
Hold on. That's amazing, dude.
Yeah. When you think
that's amazing.
Actually, I'm thinking about this right now, but when you think about starting from an alternator on a wheel, and then by the time you solve every one of those problems and you end up with an entirely new item where it's 13 innovations that the world has never seen before to solve XYZ.
Fucking wild, yeah.
Yeah. And then they grant it to you. They grant the patent. And generally speaking, you get it just tells you, like, if you Google this, generally speaking, when I was researching, they say, oh, okay, expect to know your first one. Just off the rip. Just expect your no. Your lawyer or whoever it is going to have to argue for you.
Yeah.
Because when you think about, since the patent office has opened, even if you haven't seen it, there's tons of patents just sitting on people's things, right? That you've never seen, that never see the light of day. That you're fighting against every single patent from the day that place is opened against in order to get a patent.
Yeah.
Right. And to get ours accepted the first time, we didn't have to argue, because there was 13 new innovations since the history of the patent office that no one has ever seen before in order to create this device.
That's fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah.
That's fucking wild.
And then, by the way, then
that right there's a celebration by itself.
And that's that to get this patent is very difficult. And it's a utility patent. It's not the design one. It's the big boy. Like, you see, if you go looking for my name, you look at people next to me, PhD above me, PhD below me. You know.
Wow.
And yeah. So
by the time you're done with this, the university will probably just give you a PhD just to be like, hey.
At some point in time, I'm probably gonna get a
you won't even
honorary.
Need it. Yeah, exactly. Honorary. Exactly.
But And then you want to talk about as an African American. So if a million patents go out per year, right? Only 300 of them are African American that receive them.
Wow. Out of a million? 3 or 3%?
300.
300.
Out of the million will be African Americans that receive them.
Yeah. That's fucking wild.
So not only did I have I had just receiving the patent was insurmountable odds.
Yeah.
Insurmountable odds.
Yeah. I'm going to ask a question, and this is a great topic, but why is that? Do you think it's a race thing, or do you think it's because not as many African Americans are in science?
I don't think it's a race.
Or is it an educational thing? Is it like what guided you this way? Was it schooling? I know you did the CNC machines and stuff like that, but what kind of guided you this way, and why do you think you don't see enough of African Americans or Latinos or the stereotype educational that don't get there?
Well,
and what made you so different? I know it's a curveball, but
it's not really a curveball. It's not really a curveball. It's more along the lines of the weight of the answer, because it's not just one thing you can point at. It's multitudes of that.
Right.
First, at the lowest level of is do people believe enough in themselves to be able to say they can do this?
That's
right.
Yeah, that's true. That's a huge one.
That's a huge one, right? And
to keep themselves motivated to believe in it. That's a good one.
Right? But then you have in the educational level. So when it comes to the educational levels, so depending on let's say as you're a child within a household, right? And depending on what tax bracket those households was on, you can go into each different one of these school systems, and they teach them differently.
Right.
Depending on the tax bracket of the parents and where they live, they teach the students differently. Right. So you'll get a whole different from an inner city school district, public school district. You'll get a totally different education than you'll get this isn't just prep school. We're just public schools. You'll get a totally different education. In fact, they teach you different things. They will actually teach you like how to think in certain tax brackets versus this is where it is.
Right.
Right. So actually learning the skill of how to think is probably one of the most valuable skills that anyone can learn, because that information, especially with the supercomputers that are in our pocket, any information that you want, you can ask Google right now and learn.
Yeah.
Anything in the world, doesn't matter what it is. You want to build a supercapacitor, you can build a supercapacitor if you want, if you so wish to.
Probably time machine. Not yet. But yeah, you can get anything.
Right?
Anything.
But, most people use it to, what are the Kardashians doing?
Yeah.
But that's not what I used it for.
Yeah.
I often tell people I built this business with 6 months education in machining and a professional career at Google search.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
That's how I did it. And
that's all you need. And that's probably even better than most normal learning in some cases.
It's how learning the skill of thinking and critical thinking and being able to, okay, I don't know this, but I always know how to look for the information.
That's another valuable point.
Valuable, very valuable skill. Not everyone knows how to do. Some people rely on what I know, and they don't know about the other side of it is searching for the answer. Or well, I need you to tell me how to search for the answer. And because a lot of what school is based on is, at least when I was going through school, it was, this is the answer, do the work.
Right.
Right. This is the process, but they never tell you, okay, like when it comes to math, they never tell you why to do these steps. They just tell you to do the steps and then you get the answer. But why does this convert to this? Why does this convert to that? Why do you look over here once you do this answer? Why does it do the X, Y, Z? They never teach you that, but they teach you the steps and then you do the answer.
Yeah.
Right. But, and then the other aspects is the when it comes to, when your original question was, why is there a limiter? It's a financial. Then you get into the impacts of what happened with like the Tulsa race riots and things like that, where prominence was coming up, and then things happened, and then all of the wealth that occurred had got sidetracked and got repossessed, basically.
Right.
So there's not a complicated. Well, I can't say it's not a curveball, but like it's just.
Well, it's just a random
question.
It's just it's a random heavy question of why that is. It's amazing you're there, but then at the same time, it's like you have tons and tons of talented, smart individuals of all colors and races, and you know, it is what's holding them back. And sometimes you're right. Sometimes it's just they're holding themselves back, and that's usually one of the biggest things
in today's age. So I recently, and I want to answer that question, but I want to start it with, I recently read the book, finally, Think and Grow Rich. And what I noticed about that is inconsistency of all these other people, like Carnegie and all these other people, they all went this thing called, like almost like paying the toll.
Right.
The trial and tribulations that you have to do, you have to pay the toll, right? And then as we tie back to ourselves, it's no matter what is on the other side of that, whatever goals you have to go through, the universe is going to test you and make sure that you have what it is to pay those tolls to get through to where you're trying to go. Right?
Right.
And especially in this day and age, especially in this day and age, no matter where you are, whether you're a bum on Skid Row or the richest person in the world, you know, it's a little easy for him, of course, but if you're over there, you still can get to where you're trying to go. It may be very, very, very hard because you have to pay those tolls along the way.
Right.
But you can definitely get there.
Right. And we've seen that. We've seen it before. I don't want to say many times, but we've seen it before. You know, where a person started at the bottom, or was at the top, came to the bottom, and then came back to the top. You know, you hear those stories, but it's so limited, those numbers. Like it's not common either. You know what I mean?
Because the tolls are high.
The tolls are high. You know, and I've had conversations of like, no matter where you stand in life, like you know, let's say you're a millionaire and you're a billionaire and you're 100,000aire and you know you have $5,000 a month or two, the consequences for all these groups are the same. If they don't produce enough money to pay all their bills for the next month, they're all going to get a hit on their credit. If they don't pay their mortgages or their rent, they're all going to get kicked out. If they don't, you know, if their obligations are all the same, it's just different levels. Yeah, this one's paying for a fucking Rolls Royce, and this one's paying for a Toyota Camry. This one, if he doesn't pay his insurance, they're going to take away the car. If this one, his car breaks down and he can't get to work, he's going to lose. Like it's the consequences are the same, but I guess those are the tolls that you have to deal with.
Yeah,
those are interesting.
Yeah,
interesting. So you made it. So now you're
I haven't made it yet.
Well, but no, that's a break. That's a humongous
but you know,
break.
I've come.
Just thinking of ideas is one thing, and then verifying and getting proof that your idea works is humongous. That alone is already a success, because now you know everything you've been working for all this time, you know, is worth it, and now you have a direction. No matter what you're saying, that it doesn't make sense, this path and what you're doing doesn't even match up. It doesn't fucking matter, because the point is you have a direction, and most people in life don't even have a direction. You know what I mean? So you have a direction, you have a goal. Now it's just fucking being consistent and executing it. And that's more than most people, let alone the breakthrough that you're delivering. So it's a big deal. Don't wishy-wash it that quick. You know?
Yeah. So it is a big deal. It is a big deal. And like some people that know, like he says, oh, he needs to start getting his flowers, because even at where we're at now, it's just the fact that the company exists at all. Whew. I mean, at any point that of the things that we had to accomplish, if we didn't accomplish them, the company wouldn't exist.
Right.
It wouldn't exist. And it's thinking about it right now. Now our success rate for things that we had to happen is 100%.
Yeah.
Because there was no other way that it had to happen, because we would be dead in the water.
Right.
You know? And another thing that I have to personally deal with, which is actually is slowing down, and then also appreciating where the things that we have done, and stop just 100% moving on to the next thing, because the next thing is the next thing that's screaming at me that we have to accomplish, because, you know, the company is not going to be there for a second. But, you know, even though we're not exactly where we need to be, because there's still tons of research and development that we have to do, and then we want to move on to the next car, and then we have to look for investors to move on to the car, and you know, the bar for acceptance and realization of, hey, this is a real thing, you know, is getting higher. Appreciating when we do accomplish what we do accomplish, you know, and taking a moment for that, because it, you know, the company it's almost like a baby, and it's just always screaming at you.
Yeah.
It really is. It really feels like that. It's always screaming at you because it always needs something. But you do have to take the moments for yourself, because you can experience what they call, you know, burnout and all of those things. And you have to take those moments and really appreciate those moments when you do accomplish something that was going to be very difficult to do.
Right. The car part, do you have to build a car from the ground up?
We don't have to build a car from the ground up. We do have to we can either, so there's different levels of ways that we can do it, right? The way I'd like to do it is get a car, then outfit, you know, get like a Tesla, you know, Ford Lightning, something like that, and then outfit, you know, because that would give us the best streamline into those manufacturers.
Right.
Right. Doing it with their own car and showing them, hey, we did this with your own car. You can do this. That's the easiest way to get in their doors. Right.
Right.
Now, if we don't achieve that immediately, it actually be a little cheaper to get another car and then outfit it, make it an electric, and do X, Y, Z, which will still say, hey, you can do this with a car.
Yeah.
Right. But as far as where we're going, it makes it just a little bit harder. Right.
Right.
But both will satisfy, you can do this with a car. Right.
Right.
And then below that is doing something like a go-kart or a golf cart or things like that. Still satisfies, you can do this with a moving, you know, big vehicle. But as an engineering person sitting at Ford, oh, they did it with a golf cart. It's not, you know what I mean? But still satisfies, you can do this with a moving vehicle. So depending on what kind of funding we get, that is the course of actions we will take when we're moving on to the bigger vehicle.
Okay, so question. When you get a Ford Lightning, you build it up, it's done, it works, fucking awesome. Here it is. Look, the science proved it. Here's the concept, you know, the proof of concept. There it is. You know, what's the next step? You're going to manufacture the parts to Ford and just sell it to them?
So the next step immediately after that is the marketing campaign.
Right.
Because The biggest part about this is most people don't know that this technology even exists yet.
Right. So marketing, I understand.
Yeah.
But business-wise, what are you offering to Ford and Chevy? You're offering the technology, but are you just selling them the parts? Are you going to say, look,
the original business plan was to manufacture.
Right.
The original business plan was to manufacture and sell the parts and license the software to Ford or Mercedes or
GM,
whatever it necessarily ends up being. But I'm also strongly considering licensing the technology immediately after. The reason why is because of all the different applications that we can put this technology on, and licensing the technology to the manufacturer, then they manufacture and do whatever they need to do with it. And we just collect money for the licensing.
Right. Which business-wise, yeah.
And then we start working on the next iteration of the technology to work on whatever thing, the conveyor belts or, whatever other necessary technology that can use it.
Right.
And then just rinse and repeat, do it over and over again, and until we're moving on to our whole new product.
Got it. Business-wise, that would make the most sense and make the most money.
Yeah.
And then is there a dollar amount that would make sense to just sell it and just be like, hey, I created this idea, I patented this idea, and
that it would
$5 million.
That's
$5 million. Here you go, man. Kick rocks.
$5 million is not even pennies on the dollar.
Oh, I'm sure. No, of course. And long term, 10 years from now, it's nothing.
Yeah.
That's like selling your Bitcoin when it got to like 5 cents.
So I remember when you were talking about, and one of the things I think you asked me was like, how much of it was, how was it worth?
Right.
Right. And
sorry about that. We just changed out the battery. So you were saying that if I asked you the question back then about how much would it be worth, you didn't even comprehend that.
No. Where do you even begin with something like this? So I my response was at the time was, I don't know, a lot of money.
Yeah.
which my personal development as I was thinking about that, is come a monumental way. It's come in a monumental way as far as me becoming a little bit more of a businessman and learning the things that I need to learn. But now, I can answer that question. We had a third party look into the data that we were coming up with, and we started to come up with some large numbers, and you're like, we need someone else to look at this too, make sure this is right. Let's double check this, right? So what they found out was, they looked into the technology, and then they looked at the 5 major markets who can use it right now, and looked at the total amount that those 5 major markets are worth, what they do per year, and it was 1.1 trillion. And then and then they said, okay, and then they looked at as a single individual, me and myself, given the proper investment to bring the technology to real life, could capture, which it was like 0.05% of that 1.1 trillion, and put a valuation of the technology. It was 0.05% of the 1.1 trillion, and put a valuation of the technology at 798 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's like minimum number, let alone all the applications and all the other businesses and companies.
They only did 5 major markets.
Wow.
Yeah. And the 5 major markets were all in transportation only. Didn't include warehouses or any of the other stuff we can use it.
Crypto, mining, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Stuff we can't talk about. Wink, wink. That's fucking wild. So right now, if somebody offered you 900 million, would you take it and walk away?
That's a hard question. Because
so I'm gonna interrupt you so you can think about that question. So do you know Burner? Have you heard of Burner? Mm-mm. Burner owns a weed company called Cookies. And 2 years ago, somebody offered him $920 million for his brand, his stores, his brand, everything. And he turned it down, and it was all over the news. People were like, what the fuck are you? And anyways, he did a podcast later, and he talked about, number one, he knows what the markets are going for. Companies in Canada are being bought out for like $1.4 billion, and this company was bought for $1.2 billion, and blah, blah, blah. And number two, the point that I like the most is he goes, you never take the first offer, period. Like, you just don't take the first offer. Now, I don't know where he stands today. I'm sure he's still good, but, I give you $900 million. Would you take it? But you got to walk out.
See,
bro.
when I'm thinking about this is if I took the money, I would then go build a business that is doing the same exact thing but different technology.
I don't think it's that easy.
I don't know, man.
I would build the exact same thing.
I would build the exact same business, but not doing with the magnetic heating converter, but just other technologies.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I actually want the business.
Yeah.
I want the business, and I want to spend my life creating technology and doing interesting things and
Innovations.
and innovation and building just crazy, like being able. So basically,
you want to be an inventor.
My goal is not, of course, who doesn't want to live a nice life and but after a certain amount of money, it doesn't get it actually really any better, right? But for my life, I want to build a machine, and the machine is the business, where I can take my thoughts, put my thoughts into this thing, and then it just pops out into reality. And that's what I want to build.
Yeah, and then then you could even build like a community where you can get students to come into your, facility and pop in thoughts and execute that.
Yeah.
But that's hard, bro. That's hard. I don't want to bust your bubble on that. That's a good vision, and you need to do that. But understand, that's not that easy. I mean, Google does shit like that. Google, people that work there, I think it's mandatory. I don't know what it is, but I've heard from some people, I have no idea where I heard this, but the employees have like 2 hours that they're supposed to take off, I think daily, and it's just creative. It's just fucking creative. Like, this is your job, this is your lunch, and for 2 hours you need to just chill there and just think of an idea and let's execute it. So that stuff exists, and I'm not saying you can't make that, but what I'm saying is you've created a technology that's, again, if you just get 0.05 of the first top five markets, you're already standing on $780 million, right? Let alone the next year and the next year, and it continues, and then you apply it to all these other things. It's infinite money, and now you can open, instead of one creative box of where people put thoughts and execute it, now you can create one of these like a Starbucks now.
So that's why when you said, okay, if I give you $900 million for it, would it be difficult? It's because if I was just gonna go take the money and go do it again, what's the point of taking the money?
Right. But that's what you were saying. You would just take the money and do the exact same thing but different. Yeah.
So if the money was the goal, then yeah, you would take the money.
Right.
But the money isn't the goal. The money is going to come
no matter what. Yeah, either way, exactly.
Either way.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That'd be that's a very difficult question for me. And depending personally, no. But there's more than just me. There's the other investors. So I have the dreams and the hopes of other people on my shoulders now as well. So it's a difficult question.
Yeah.
If it was all up to me, no. Because the money's going to come as well. It's just what is going to happen
in 5 years, or exactly.
And just by course of the business, you'll be able to live the experience that you want to live just by being in the business. You don't need more. But,
you're not allowed to take any offers for the next 2 years. How about that? Just work on executing your project.
Yeah. So that's generally speaking. That's what I want to do. I want the business. I want to be able to make crazy technology. I want to move into nanotechnology, medical technology. I want to all of these crazy ideas that I have that I've always had but never executed on. And then you're sitting in some place and you're reading a magazine and said, "Oh my God, I had that idea." And it was like 10 years ago.
And somebody did it.
Somebody finally did it. And that's what I realized through ideas. And now we're getting a little bit into metaphysics, but ideas they don't actually belong to you.
Yeah.
They come to someone, and then if they don't do it, then it's passed along to someone else. And if they don't do it, it's passed along to someone else. And then it will eventually arrive at the person who will execute the idea.
Interesting. I like that.
Right? So that's what I realized about ideas. And you'll see, like, everyone can relate to, "Oh my God, I had that idea."
What was yours? What was one? I'm sure there's more than one, but what was one idea that you're like, "Fuck, I have an idea"?
In elementary school, I came up, now I didn't know the science of it, but I came up with this crazy idea to help blind people see TV. And I had this drawing. It was like this little wire hooked up to the back of the people's heads, and they can, like, they click it in and they'd watch TV. Blind people would watch TV. Right?
Right.
And then I see the technology come out. I'm sitting as a man, I'm remembering this, and then I see that someone had actually did it. I'm like, wow, I had that idea. Couldn't execute, of course, but it came to me.
Let me see that. Sorry about that. I don't know why that's ringing. And it's a scam. I had one like that. It was what do you call it? I even patented it. I went to a patent office, but it was just a general idea patent. But I remember I got a Capri Sun, and I put it in the freezer, and it froze too much, and it was slushy. I was like, "Fuck, man, it's all slushy." And I was kind of complaining. One of my buddies like, "Dude, but that's when it's like the best." I'm like, "Yeah, it's kind of is the best." What if it had alcohol? What if it had alcohol? And at that time, this was like before iPhones and stuff like that. Same thing, went online, looked for whatever. Nobody had it. And I went, and we went to a patent place, and then it was just overwhelming. And you have to pay, $1,000 for the patent, $10,000 for them to invent it and execute it. And then this, that. 7 years later, 5 years later, fucking, it's at the stores now. Like, there's like a few companies that do it. I'm like, you motherfuckers.
So you've went through, like, what you've experienced what going through a patent is like, right?
Oh, yeah.
I got my patent for $4,500.
That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy.
It is a minefield of people trying to make money off of people who actually won't get you anything, even if you pay them.
Yeah. That's what it was. I was in San Jose, and they were like, "Look, at this much to file the patent, this much to maintain it on a yearly base. But if you spend $10,000, we'll go ahead and develop it. By the developing it, we'll start pitching it. We have connections with these major brands and blah, 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 blah. We've worked with blah." And by the time I was done, I was like, "Dude, I don't know who's who, what's what." It could have been them that took my fucking idea and fucking went with it. I think my patent was good for like a year or some shit, and I had to pay like a filing fee. I don't know, bro. I was like 22 or something. Yeah,
they were talking about the provisional patent.
Yeah,
because I think
package A, package B, fuck out of here, bro. And if
they were trying to
now,
they were trying to get you.
They were upselling me like crazy.
Yeah, they were upselling you. So like the design patent is 10 years, a utility patent is 20 years. Okay. Yeah. So if they were only talking about a year, that was a provisional patent.
Yeah, something like that. And then it was like, it was provisional where I had to pay, and then they were gonna test and see if anybody really had it or didn't have it. And anyways, fucking big shit show.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult to go through the patent process.
Yeah,
it is not easy, and there's a lot of companies that prey on people.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
A lot of companies that prey on people.
Yeah, and at 22, my mind was like on other things. I was like, I got a party to go to tonight, man. Like,
you remember that when we were out in Palm Springs, another inventor that I had spoke to, he spent $100,000.
Shark Tank? But they were at Shark. Excuse me.
$100,000 on the thing, what he had. And he was just building something to fit in a door to hold a sign. He spent $100,000 on that.
Yeah.
it's there are so many holes and potholes for you to fall in when you're creating something new, that there's so many people trying to help you do things that actually won't actually help you get to your actual goal of something made. Before you know it, you can spend stupid amounts of money and have nothing.
Yeah.
So when I was saying there, to actually end up at your goal, right? And by the way, not having enough, like when everyone's telling, oh, you're gonna have to spend 10,000, you're gonna have to spend this, you're gonna have to spend that, and then by the end you get to where you're going and you figured out how to do it with $4,500.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah,
I could teach a class, sir.
I spent more on my podcast equipment than what you did on that.
I could teach a class now.
Yeah,
I could show you exactly how to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And people would pay for that class. People would pay for the class.
Yeah.
All right, let's do. We're over an hour. What points are we missing?
I don't know. We talked about a lot of different things.
We talked about fucking race and science and entrepreneurship. What's probably the biggest lesson you've learned on this fucking venture of people not understanding you and not being able to explain yourself and sharing an idea from your mind and executing it onto paper and executing it into a software to A3? Like what is it? And you kind of you've kind of said it, it's believe in yourself, but like what's the biggest learning lesson of all this that you've executed that you would advise to some? Better yet, what advice would you give yourself now if you can communicate to your 10-year-old self, or not 10-year-old self, but 10 years from from today? And then nothing silly like buy Bitcoin, like that's what Cash would say. Buy Bitcoin, okay, bro, we get it, bro. Yeah, like play these lottery numbers. No, I'm like, what would you tell yourself that you know now before?
As simple as that is, I would tell myself to start believing in what your gut was telling you a lot earlier than you did.
Yeah.
Because what I learned about things that get in your way, they don't actually stop you. They're just walls. You can climb over a wall. You can kick it down. You can break it. There's many ways to get over a wall, get past to get to the other side of that wall. But what I found out is until you make that decision to, okay, I'm going to look at this wall and it's not going to stop me, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's debilitating, and you stay enclosed in wherever you are. So yes, believing in yourself, but making that conscious decision to say, hey, I'm going to do this, and I'm going, even though no one understands what I'm talking about, there's a reason for that. But that shouldn't stop me. In fact, even with the first patent search we had, they told us, don't try to patent this. But then I looked at it and I was like, oh, they're missing X, Y, and Z. They're missing this. They're missing that. They're missing this many aspects.
Yeah.
And that's why this came back wrong. But I had to believe in my own understanding and trust it. It's like, that's what I would tell myself. I would tell myself, start listening to your gut earlier. That's what I would tell myself.
That means a lot. Yeah. That's kind of the answer I was looking for, because that's something you could tell yourself that you could do back then.
Yeah. Because,
Yeah. Great. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
That means a lot, man. Any other things we missed?
No. I think we talked about a lot of the core stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'd be glad to get you back on and hear updates and keep us posted.
Okay.
Maybe next time have like a little pitch deck for investors.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on the website. A lot of stuff where you can see.
What is the website? Where can people find you? What's your email address?
So you can Google me. My name is Gray Cash, spelled with an A, Gray, and then last name is Cash, Cash. I'll pop up from LinkedIn. And the company website is cashelectronicdesigns.com. That's the website. And, we have a lot of videos where you can see what we've been doing, who we've been talking to, who we're associated with, and, kind of follow the journey. Yeah.
Fucking awesome. Perfect. Thank you, Gray.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem, man.